listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
Check.
It's so loud.
Oh, the Satanic Panic.
Satan!
Yeah, episode 4 has almost 50 listens on SoundCloud.
Did you ever have any awkward confrontations? Like, did you ever get any super zealotous people? Like, somebody's mom found out or aunt found out and like stormed the basement. Didn't storm the basement. We did have a couple parents that decided they were going to school because we were playing at school.
I'm gonna also have this here too, just to be like, oh, and if you want to get a gift for a dungeon master in your life, fucking fishing tackle box, exceedingly useful for the organizations. Maybe like these. God, I love those sparkly pink dice. That's kind of what I was going for in this manicure. Next time I'm gonna go in and be like, I'm gonna steal one and be like, I want these. Miss Luann, please give me these. Middle-aged Vietnamese lady. Miss Luann, who does my mom's nails.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.pod with very little
Okay, you got that camera on? Main screen turn on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then...
And I'll be more over here once we get going.
Don't worry, I love you.
Okay, we do have to really start planning now.
No, we're playing.
We've planned.
Yeah, we're good.
Talking about Artificer.
We are never planned enough, I gotta tell you.
Okay, Jake, you are not in frame. You're going to need to lean in a little bit more. And then I'll be next to you and squeezed in.
We're all gonna be squeezed
Yeah,
in.
so Jake, you're fine there, and that way we'll all be in frame. Viewing this.
Time to pull up the Artificer.
I think perhaps we should start reading things up before 10 minutes
Nah.
before we start.
You get the most candid hot takes if you just look it up.
I mean, I've already used it a few times. I'm just pulling it up so I have it in front of
Knock the
me.
camera over with my big face.
Yeah, I guess my problem with
And bubblegum hasn't been invented yet, so what's up? One of my favorite one-liners in the show.
I think that's still my personal favorite moment is the rapid fire.
The rapid fire
analysis of each.
bell.
Oh, yeah, the bell. Yeah, the bell's in here.
Ding.
No, I think that should be our hot takes alarm for Star Wars hot takes at the end.
I'm really against the Star Wars thing, I gotta tell you. This is a D&D podcast.
One hot take each.
This is a D&D podcast, I'd like to remind you.
We
guys.
do cover geek culture, though. That is our thing, and so it is.
It's important. We don't need to do a Star Wars that fully next week, but we will.
Like, if we're gonna talk about it, we should at least mention, like, Edge of the Empire or...
You can. I mean, Clinto's hot takes can be.
I'm telling you, dude. Luke's a great Jedi.
I'm telling you, Luke is secretly Jar Jar Binks.
I'm telling you, I'm going out for a cigarette real quick, and then I'm gonna post.
Mass hysteria. Everybody is actually Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
The final three movies are literally nothing but a physical manifestation of what has been going on in Jar Jar Binks' mind the whole time.
I think you mean the entire series. I gotta listen. Maybe it's just my headset. Testing. I think it is just my headset.
Qui-Gon Jinn appears at the very end. It just kills both Rey and fucking.
Yeah, it's just my headset. It's just off, that's all. It's not the microphone or anything.
I am going to request that we plug the SoundCloud in the show because we've received multiple messages from people asking how they can listen to us outside of Facebook
Oh, yeah, definitely.
and not live.
Okay, I'm also gonna look and see if we're fucking on iTunes yet.
I'll
We're
look
on
it up right now.
iTunes. We're on iTunes under the Podcast Detroit banner, but I don't know if we're like by ourselves there.
Yeah, we're under the Podcast Detroit Internet Radio, but we do not have our own thing.
Yet.
I don't know if we're going to.
I think part of the plan was to actually get that established at some point, but yeah, at least we have SoundCloud. That'll do. And then we're also going to be, I'm going to be putting the videos on the website.
SoundCloud has actually rapidly been overtaking iTunes Podcast as being one of the number one
iTunes
podcast
app
locations.
is garbage now that they've updated it. It's horse shit.
Well, that's because
If
iTunes
we're
in
live
general
right
is
now,
not
Apple,
garbage.
if you're listening, put it back.
I don't think we're live.
I don't care.
Thank God.
NSA, put it back.
Well, let's try to get some of our professionalism together here, guys.
No, never.
Be right back. Slam this back, start pouring another one. Still got 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. Helen, you'll enjoy this video. I have something to show you. I apparently can't spell. But it's like an 8-second video. You bringing up Han Solo and Lando reminded me of this. Block that shit, block that shit, block that shit. Now I got your gun. Chewie's scream, though.
Love it. Oh my
Chewie's.
Surprise, motherfucker. I love it.
How long is this? Okay, yeah, we have time.
Let me tell you
I wanna
a little
listen to
story
this.
about these statistics. Troy Polamalu, okay? Fucking Troy Polamalu. So,
Troy Polamalu. Dream Crusher. All right, I'm sharing everything now.
that was a 100%. We didn't even have a cancel the goddamn play because it was 100%. If we ever end up in this situation, inside the 7-yard line on the left hash, it is a 100%er that the C gap will be wide open and we will just park the C to the left. It'll be a touchdown. 100%er. We're playing in Pittsburgh, the city I grew up in. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I won the punt passing kick national championship, AJ. National championship. AJ.
Congrats.
AJ, did you ever win the national championship punt passing kick?
I think I got third or fourth.
This is AJ Hawk, former linebacker for Ohio State.
Oh, yeah.
Proud of you, man. Anyways, so we're there in that stadium, okay? A lot of McAfee's in there.
This is Pat McAfee, former punter and holder for the Indianapolis Colts.
Night game, Sunday Night Football. Right here, touchdown. We get into that situation, and I'm like, holy fuck, this is really going to happen. We're like on the 6, on the left hash. It's 4th and goal now. Field goal team's jogging on. I'm like, oh fuck.
All right, Glenn, I'm sharing it. So if you wanna cut that, that'd be nice.
I'm ready for this to happen. Are we really not going to talk about how big of an asshole Troy Polamalu is for that?
Boy.
Yeah, no, we're already live, dude.
I know. I'm sharing us to the thing.
Do we have audio?
Not yet.
Good afternoon, and welcome to our before the show shenanigans.
Yes.
Final checks, everyone.
Yep. We live.
Are we live? All right.
Get your drink.
Done.
But yeah, I'm serious. The things I would do for young Han Solo, Lando, scoundreling about movie and or TV show.
Should have worn a nicer shirt.
Whatever.
So it
I've gotta
goes.
I've got to go to a Christmas party after this, so I got to dress up, y'all. No, I was telling Jake and Clint earlier, I was having a freaking stage fright about wrapping a gift because I work in a stationery shop, and I was like, this has to look good. And after some wine.
Apparently, a link to the main page is acting up a bit.
That's why I keep on.
But, well, it may have just been a one-time thing. Well, in any case,
So,
we are in fact live.
yeah, hang on. Let me
Do we have any information from the 5th edition D&D group?
We're gonna find out. I shared it.
Oh boy, here we go.
You never know when anybody's at the wheel.
to
So
the video directly.
I already have sent it. Don't worry about it. Boy. That's what I was going to check. Right.
Yeah, whoops.
Okay. That's not very good. I forget. Do tools use attributes for bonuses in 5th edition?
yeah.
Why would you ask me?
I was asking in Jake's general
That's true.
direction.
You just
Did you already
looked at
set
me
the
and I was
audio?
like,
We have the audio set up, I'm pretty sure.
yes, we did.
And we are live, so let's get ready for that. Welcome to the exclusive pre-show show.
Show for the show.
Glad to have you with us.
Here we go.
All right, scooching.
Come scoot in a little bit more.
Can't see Jake.
No, I know. I'm sitting over here.
Oh wait, no. What we gotta do is, can you try to bring up the actual live video and not the Facebook feed because it's a little delayed on computers. So we can make sure we're all in frame. Thank you.
I
So
can.
I scoot closer. You scoot closer to me.
Oh boy. What are we doing?
Man, just give me.
I am so confused.
I gotta hit play on stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you can turn the laptop a little bit on the tape. You're gonna have to pick it up. I don't want to rip out the books with the. Like that.
There you go. Just slide into frame when it is first.
Slide to the DMs.
Slither right in.
Paul, when the episode is over, go to the corner.
Think about what you have done.
I'm already thinking about what I'm done, and I'm laughing internally.
Sure. All right, everybody. Semi-professional faces on.
All right.
We go live in 20 seconds. Live.
Like, we're live right now, but
I-
live.
Shh. No one cares about us. Right
Did we get shared?
Of course not.
now. All right.
Yet.
Everybody in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Welcome to 3DM's podcast. I'm Jake, joined as per usual by Paul and Helen, and Clint has decided to make it to 2 shows in a week.
Oh.
You make it
A new record.
if you get to 3, you're going to get a gold star, buddy.
I was gonna say it'll be a turkey.
Oh,
gonna say,
shit.
what
Hat trick.
So, we got one last class to talk about. One last semi-official class
That we were supposed to talk about last week, but we got carried away.
Psionics. The swear jar is off screen.
It's back here.
We feel really
No
bad.
f bombs today.
I know. I've
ladies
used up
and
our allotment
gentlemen.
for the next month. So, psionics. So, guys, let's talk about Artificer. But before we talk about Artificer, let's thank Podcast Detroit for giving us a wonderful and beautiful place to record our show, Podcast Detroit. You ever want to start your own radio show? Well, it's as easy as you think it is.
It's easier than you think it is, actually.
Yeah, correct.
So
Thanks for the
much
correction.
easier.
So much easier. Not as stressful as you probably.
It's only like a half hour prep.
All right,
time.
I've botched the ad sale. Okay, so guys, just go to Podcast Detroit if you're in the Southeast Michigan area.
Don't
Start
forget
your own show. It's
Watch
awesome.
Terror Comics and Games, too, which has done a lot to support us.
Yes. Hopefully we'll get Ethan on the show here soon. But
That would be awesome.
guys,
With
let's
that-
dive into Artificer.
Yeah,
let's
let's just go ahead.
not waste any time. Artificer is I actually can't remember if it was in 2nd edition, but I know for a fact it was in 3rd edition. It was broken in 3rd edition because it turns out that being able to create magic items easier in a game which focuses entirely around magic in 3rd edition,
It's
it's
a little
kind of
overpowered.
it's a kind of a recipe for disaster.
What could possibly go wrong?
It was
somewhere
Generally
the
speaking-
narrator's right, and here's exactly what went wrong.
That generally speaking, the estimate of the Artificer is that in a straight up dungeon crawl, the Artificer was tier 3, but it was all just below Wizard, Cleric, Druid, Erudite, and the other prepared spellcasters when it came to out of combat stuff, because you could just make magic items
Yeah,
easily.
I do remember playing in a couple of 3.5 campaigns where everything eventually boiled down to the wizard getting to a certain level, and it's just like, all right, so when do you want to start making a bunch of magical items for your friends?
Yeah. I don't actually recall if it was in
How
4th
magical
edition.
are we talking?
Lots of magical items. We're talking like
a +1 sword of smiting?
Ah,
Or
funny joke. We're talking like +5 weapons.
Ugh.
We're talking like I have just made the keys to the kingdom.
Yes.
They're very sharp.
Hold on, let me just make a
it's
cloak
not
of
a
invisibility for the rogue, because that sounds balanced.
quick.
Again, what could possibly go
Or even
wrong?
better, I'm just going to put all of my spells in wands and never prepare any spells again because I'm carrying 50 wands instead.
Yeah. Artificer showed back up in 4th edition, reared its interesting head. It's got a very interesting head. And
Lots of gadgets.
yeah, lots of gadgets. But 4th
Like
edition,
R2-D2 with all
4th
sorts of
edition
little
is, you know,
army knives
is
in
that
it,
is that weird edition that we've all kind of grown to love now that we're not having to use it anymore. So, but
It's
now
kind
we're
of
on,
like a math test, to be
yeah,
honest.
but now we're on
Scholarly Latin.
yeah, but now we're on 5th edition Artificer. So
Let's get to the bad stuff first.
let's do the breakdown from the top. So they got
Alright.
D8 hit dice, light and medium armor proficiencies, which is neat.
Surprising. They've got simple weapons,
And they can also
Thieves'
use
Tool
Thieves'
proficiencies,
Yeah.
and 2 other tools of their choice. And this is important, and I'll tell you why in a moment. They have proficiency in a couple skills, and their saves are Constitution Intelligence, which is... they don't have perception, so it's kind of mediocre at best.
And they get a decent selection of skills
Yeah.
from the top 3, and some pretty useful ones in there. No perception, though, so that's the only
Like I said,
downside there.
it's
But
kinda mediocre.
sleight of hand, kind of useful. Having history and investigation are things that always just kind of come in handy, but are never dire.
Never a dire need.
Well, as we've said before with investigation checks, that's kind of up to the DM, because I've noticed that Jake in the game that I play with him has started to use investigation checks a little bit more versus using perception checks all the time.
Yeah, it's probably why they split it up into investigate and perception.
With that intent, and
Yeah.
then it's still the most rolled skill in the game.
But
It's the most rolled skill in any game.
Let's
if they
focus
have a
on-
perception
hey,
skill, you
guys.
should focus on it.
Artificer's feeling lonely in the corner where we've left it. So,
You guys would
So you
say
choose an
it.
archetype at level 1, and you choose to either be an alchemist or a gunsmith, basically.
which is neat.
It's interesting.
Wait, so alchemist as in like Full Metal Alchemist?
More like throwing bombs.
So
The Mad Bomber, what
Roy
bombs at
Mustang,
midnight?
the Flame Alchemist, or Kimberly.
No, it's just more like I make a bunch of potions in jars and they do different things, and I throw out my fat sack of mason bell jars and just ha!
It's the better of the 2 archetypes,
Yeah.
but that doesn't make it particularly good, I guess. It's kind of... admittedly, you have no limit on how often you can do it, but it's just kind of mediocre at what it does.
And then the other one was a gunslinger.
It's a gunsmith. The gun does excellent damage at low levels. So level 1 to 5, you're putting out 2d6 damage per shot. But the problem is you never get an extra attack. Oh, you need to turn your mic around.
We can't really.
Let's take a step back. So you do 2d6 damage. There's a whole bunch of cool special abilities you can do with it, but the problem is you never get an additional attack. And at the end of the day, you're playing a fighting class with d8 hit dice and simple weapon proficiencies.
So let's break it down from the top now, y'all. So after you pick your your subclass, you're making guns or you're making sweet potions that go boom. You get what I think is a really interesting ability at 2nd level, which is tool expertise.
Yes, which it makes you better than the rogue at rogue things because you're likely to have higher intelligence.
Yeah. So your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability checks that you make using tool proficiencies. So you basically get expertise on tools.
Notably, it is only tool proficiencies you obtained with this class.
Yeah. Well, you can still get...
it's Thieves' Tools, which is by far and away the most useful set of
You
tools.
get Thieves' Tools and you get 2 others. So you are both really good at breaking into things, apparently. And if you want, you can make the best damn beer ever because you have brewer's tools.
Craft brew kit.
Yeah. You open up microbreweries all over Waterdeep and you just dominate the market.
That sounds like my next character is going to be an artificer.
Double proficiency. But the thing, of course, is that this is excellent, but it doesn't have the other stuff Rogue does. And I'm very hard on this class because I feel like as much as I malign 3rd edition, and I'm not a fan of 3rd edition, don't get me wrong, this class only ever gets to make 4 magic items ever.
Okay,
That seems
so
like
let's dive into that though. So,
sparse.
Wondrous Invention. At 2nd level, this is again neat. You gain the ability. So just to power read this to you really fast. At 2nd level, you gain the use of a magic item that you have crafted. Choose the item from the list of 2nd level items below. Crafting an item is a difficult task. When you gain a magic item from this feature, it reflects long hours of study, tinkering, yada 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 yada. Yada. Yeah, I think you get the idea at this point. You complete another item at certain levels, so 5th, 10th, 15th, and 20th level. The item you choose must be on the list for your current Artificer level or a lower level. And these are all items out of the DMG. So you get a pretty impressive list of stuff to make. A lot of very useful things, like I'm seeing bags holding. I'm seeing like a bag of
The
holding.
bag of holding is by far and away the most useful.
Yeah,
because,
level 2.
I mean, carrying stuff is the biggest challenge for.
Sending stones.
adventurers.
Loot is your main quest, generally.
Yeah.
Loot and XP.
Yeah, sending stones is useful. Bunch of other stuff,
You used to call me out.
which is, it doesn't. God, don't.
I just. I mean, I understand why they did it because, hold on, I'm just going to take a week off and crap out 5,000 +1 swords. But at the same time, what's the point of the Artificer if the only time you can create an item is at a specific level and never before? And never after, really.
So, you gotta find a fine balance, because as we talked about in older editions, artificers could just literally arm an army with the most ridiculous stuff.
Yeah. I feel like, again, though, they've sort of overshot their goal. But that being said, personally, I think their most interesting feature is at 6th level, they get the ability to make a construct, which is equivalent of a 2 CR monster, which obeys their orders. And this is really good, and it's probably the only thing I think that really redeems this class overall.
Well, and also
Could
too,
it be
they
like
do.
a mount or like a sort of hidden, like unseen servant.
Why bother that? Why just make an ogre?
They also.
Right? How smart could
They-
you make it? Can't you just make yourself like a little servant? You know?
You could, but you shouldn't, because you can go up to CR2.
Yeah, exactly. It makes
They
something
also
big.
they
Yeah.
also do
Be
get
like, "Here,
spell slots
build
per
this
level.
wall."
They do, but the thing is, their spell casting is so pathetic.
Yeah, it's not that great.
You have to wait until 13th level to get haste.
So
Well, that's
Yeah.
a long time.
so we can talk. There's a bunch of different. So with the alchemist subclass, there is a bunch of different alchemies you can make and
Yes.
basically throw every round. Again, I love just the idea of like the artificer with a messenger bag, and you're just reaching into your sack and just pulling out random jars to throw at people.
It's definitely the most useful of the 2 archetypes available, and I think it's a perfectly balanced archetype. I just don't think it's particularly notable.
Yeah.
Again, though, I believe you get unlimited uses of your bombs.
Yeah.
So notably on there is healing. Unlimited healing is pretty strong, it turns out.
Unlimited healing.
Yeah, it,
Well, hang on. Let's take a double check at that.
It's admittedly been a while since I looked at the class.
Yeah.
bear with us.
Yeah, give us a moment.
No, so it's I mean, it's just pretty much how you throw. It depends really on because you have your satchel, you have your alchemist satchel that you get at level 1, so
Yeah.
your sweet little messenger bag, and you pull out the exact right materials what you need to make the alchemical
Alchemical.
formula. Thank you. Alchemical.
I guess I should say that I do like this class. I just think it's on the very low end of the power scale in 5th edition.
So,
Guys, we do have a comment here from Nick Dean.
which I was about to hop to. So
Oh,
let's hop
perfect.
to.
Because we were about to start talking
Yep.
about gunslinger.
Let's hop to Gunsmith really quick, because when I first saw this, I was like, okay, this is actually a respectable way to get guns into a lower fantasy setting, is by literally having a class who it's just like, I make a gun.
Yeah, one gun is the only gun
I
ever.
make one gun.
Look up like fancy inlaid.
So,
pearls, the
yes,
Smithsonian and, like,
in response to what
Gunslinger
you said
stuff.
earlier, Paul, about not getting
Hold
more
on, Paul.
attacks, but they do gain more damage dice as they go up, which still
They
is
do.
not as effective
It's not as effective as another attack.
getting more attacks.
Oops, I don't have an extra attack, and I'm using. I'm a spellcaster, so let me use my +1 Dex modifier. Oops, I missed. That's all I get to do this round.
Yeah.
Can't you pistol whip?
No.
What?
Well, I would allow a pistol.
I mean,
whip.
you can certainly like punch people, but it's not an extra attack, so it's either that or shooting.
Yeah.
Admittedly, it is a lot of damage when it hits.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got a ton of abilities. But the thing is that by this point, by the point you get to that level, the barbarian is hitting for like 30 damage almost all the time.
Yeah.
And the fighter's making like 6 or 7 attacks total with haste.
Yeah. So like with Thunder, what's it called here? Yeah.
The Thunder Cannon.
No, what is it? It's the Thundermonger ability. At 11th level, you are adding like 5d6 thunder damage to every shot, which it's using 2d6, so it's basically a ranged greatsword from hell.
I'm sorry, 5d6?
Yeah, 5d6.
That's
so
5d6 added on top of the damage that the
2d6.
bullet would do.
But at the same time,
That's nice.
Fireball does more than that at this level.
And
It
AoE.
looks cool.
And Fireball's
it's-
not even a very good spell.
It is 11th level. It's one of those things where, a really effective gunsmith artificer can be made. You just have to build him a certain way, him or her.
It definitely has a use. Don't get me wrong. This is not like the True Namer of 5th edition where the class gets mechanically worse at what it does as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a fun story, by the way. We'll say that for another time. But the artificers got worse. The True Namer got worse at doing their job the higher level they got.
Yeah.
Fun story.
So, to finish up about Artificer here, because, we could go over the spell list. Spell list isn't
It's
super
mediocre.
impressive.
You don't
It's
get a lot of
decent.
spells, and you get it so slowly that it's kind of frustrating. And this is somebody who hates, like, wizards being super strong and clerics being super strong.
Yeah.
This spell list could really use somebody to just like, hey, little guy, you need this because
You need help.
you
Dangerous alone.
want to be a fighter with D8 hit dice and medium armor. So best of luck.
Yeah. So I don't like, as far as being a strong, if we're going to throw air quotations up there, strong class, it's definitely not like going to be game ending or potentially world breaking. However, Artificer is one of my favorite classes to throw on an NPC.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're definitely a lot of fun to play as like either an odd villain or a random person that the party encounters.
Yeah, like
Who
a
can
Q,
do-
like James Bond.
A
Yeah.
bag of tricks NPC, if you will.
Yeah, who can just do a bunch of unique, cool little things.
Also, the Thunder Cannon is probably a lot scarier when you're facing it down on a villain. I got to tell you.
Yeah. Well, also too, this class is, again, it's one of those things. If like the player really, really enjoys playing it, then that's fine. If they're super happy with their choice as an artificer, that's cool. There is a bunch of great out of combat utility that it holds that is
Bag of holding.
fun. Yeah.
You know how many uses you can get with a bag of holding? I made a crate of holding that doesn't even reduce the weight of the items, and people have still found a way to abuse it.
Yeah.
On that note, Helen, you said something about fancy inlaid guns, which I'm afraid you kind of got talked over there.
Oh yeah, sorry, I just got really excited. But a lot of the sort of Indian Army Persian guns, around the 16th, 17th century, when smaller pistols with 1 or 2 shots were getting more popular and safe, they would be fancy. Look
Yeah.
that up. Inlaid pistols.
And
like jewels, jade was nice, agate was nice.
Really cool fluff material,
yeah, yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
Go nuts with your fantasy.
what's they called? The Tanashima from the Japanese, where they
Yeah.
made fantastic flintlocks. A fun fact, by the way, the Japanese made more accurate flintlocks than anyone else ever did. So
So
it's the only thing they did as far as guns go, but
So
they did it well.
If I can throw my 2 cents in here about Artificer, I know
Of course.
I started to talk about it a little bit outside, and I mean, mechanics aside, we've already gone over the mechanics. We've already talked about the spell list briefly, that sort of thing. Here's where I find that the inclusion of Artificer in 5e finds its strength. Even at 20th level, by that time, one Artificer has created 5 magic items. This, justifiably speaking, gives it reason why there is not much of a magic item economy, because it doesn't make sense. As we've said, why would a shop owner have a sword that's worth the kingdom in his
Hold on, let me just sell this for more than this entire block.
Exactly.
somebody dropped it off in my shop.
Yeah, you could just
Don't know
walk
how it
in.
got here.
You could walk in,
It's
hold
worth about $20, said the Pawn Stars guy.
Yeah.
right. You could hold up a sword, walk up to the king, and be like, "I own this now because this sword is worth more than you have."
Yeah.
See, if
Whereas-
there's somebody that's willing to buy it, and the only people who are willing to buy it are adventurers, to speak in defense
Right.
of the economy. Like, why is a king going to buy a +3 sword and they can buy 500 masterwork swords for their army instead?
But where
Quantity has a quality all of its own.
this class I think has a lot of strength in 5e is it gives magic items in 5e a sense, if you will.
It
rare
creates value.
rarity.
Yeah, it
Creates
creates the value to where, hey, I can't buy these things. They're rare to find because one person can only make 5 of them. And because people generally won't play with artificers in their party, it gives them a sense of there aren't many people like this in the world to begin with.
I should note that they don't include any like +1 magic swords or anything here, which does solve the problem that 4th edition had of, I'm just going to give up a point of Constitution to create a +1 longsword.
Yeah.
Like, why?
How does that even work?
It's
Put your blood in your sword?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like
Put
the
your life
it's like
force
the,
into it.
Yeah, it's the sword forging scene from the beginning of Conan the Barbarian.
yeah.
It also
Not putting it in snow or blood because those things would break a sword, but we're not going to talk about that.
It also puts into perspective certain magic items. Like I know for a fact I've played with multiple people that have gotten a hold of a hat of disguise, and they're just like, yeah, it's cool. I can change my appearance.
Hat
But
of
it takes
disguise
an
is incredible.
artificer being able to get to 15th level to make that thing.
That does seem a bit wrong, I guess. Like the hat of disguise is basically just disguise self on a stick or in a hat in this case.
Yeah.
A pointy hat.
Fabulous
purple
The
hat.
thing is, of course, is that most magic items, no matter how useless they seem, have some use that you're probably just not seeing yet. The decanter of endless water is one of those things that seems useless until you flood your first dungeon with it.
Or you jump inside the Tarrasque's open mouth and then just leave the decanter open and then say something very snazzy as you put your sunglasses back on and jump out of the Tarrasque.
Or even shout
Careful,
out to
don't
the-
drink too much.
Yeah.
Or shout out to the Drunks and Dragons Real Play 5e podcast where Steve, the gore-forged Nolan, has a decanter of endless water in his throat, and he's like this hideous Frankenstein of many things, and he's like, "Do you want some water?" Or like, Blastoise it and just like. People.
Well, the thing is, it's just
But
a
that's
little
horrifying to gaze upon.
So, final thoughts on the Artificer.
Artificer is really cool. It's as far as multi-class potential, it actually has some. Like you're not going to make a fighter better by putting Artificer, but you can make a really interesting character with like a fighter Artificer mix.
Yeah, my question, of course, is does the thunder cannon is the thunder cannon a ranged weapon? Because
Yes.
if so, the
Yes.
one level in Artificer may be worth it for a fighter just to get the great sword ranged weapon.
Yeah. And even then, add a couple of levels for a couple of other things, or even adding Alchemist. Like I could also see Rogue Artificer being a really nasty combo in terms of just being able to mess your game up outside
Yeah.
of combat. I mean, still
And does the
hold a lot of combat effectiveness.
Does the double expertise apply? Like you get expertise from
That's-
rogues and you get an expertise from
That
Artificer.
is a good question for the Sage Advice column because if you
hold
get
on.
super advice,
Let me just get my plus 15 to rogues tools in a setting which
what level are
listeners,
TN
this is
15 is tough.
Hit us up.
what level? Yeah, no, that'd be actually hilarious. Like, what level are you? Level 2. All right, so you're gonna try to pick open the safe to the king's,
Treasury or whatever?
Treasury, yeah.
Oh, let me just pull up my plus 10
Hang
on
on,
Thieves' tools.
it'd be higher than that almost.
Well, the thing is, of course, at level 2, your proficiency is only plus 2, so you get plus 2, plus 2, plus 2, and then your 4 decks. So
Yeah,
it's
and then
10,
your 4 decks. Yeah, no, because
which is still ridiculous because, like, what, the toughest locks are TN 22 or something?
yeah, you're just
So you roll a 12 or higher.
Yeah, that's pretty common, I gotta tell you.
Yeah, which is dumb.
That's like, what, 40% or something?
Yeah.
40% of the time you succeed every time?
yeah. No, so Artificer
40% of the time, it works every time.
So yeah, no,
I think,
Artificer.
I think we can definitively say that Homeboy and Anchorman played in D&D. Because the only type of person that would say 60% of the time it works every time is somebody that would understand that.
yeah,
Well,
That's
again,
how I feel about
my pessimistic thinking here is that that's obviously not how it was intended to work, and the Unearthed Arcana stuff is never intended to be multi-classed, but it's a fun thought experiment.
yeah. And it also holds a lot of great value as an NPC.
Yeah, of course. Why not?
A useful show pony.
Yeah.
My last statement on Artificer, as far as like player character, I don't think that I would enjoy playing an Artificer personally. However, having this class be a part of the game helps me as a rookie/amateur world builder make sense of magic items in my campaign setting.
Yeah. What about you, Helen? Any thoughts on the Artificer
Yeah,
to
they
finish up?
add a lot of character to the world building and sort of explain, like Clint said, why is this so scarce and the economy. I'd also like to, say that they're very useful and very fun NPCs. And again, I think that
Yeah.
only creating 4 items ever is kind of
Five.
outrageous.
Five.
Okay, beg your pardon.
Yeah.
2,
But
5,
still,
10,
given
15,
that these
20.
can be
Yep.
a little OP'd, that's probably sensible.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose at the end of it, I really want to like the Artificer, and I do. I just don't think it's really something I would enjoy playing or that most players enjoy playing because it seems very
Slow.
So Paul on the
weaker
Artificer.
than other options.
So on the Artificer, Paul, you are. It's not you. It's me.
Yes.
As you walk away into the sunset.
It's
Play me, Paul. Please, just play me. No,
you watch. I'm going to play an Artificer in your game, and I'm going to rock it.
you would. So
Again, though, it just seems like there are better options. Like everything it does, another class does better. It kind of feels like it's spread all over the place, and not like the Bard, where it's like spread out like paint me like one of your French girls, and it's doing like 4 or 5 different things well. It feels like it's trying to do like 15 things mediocrely.
It's like a stressed out octopus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got its tentacles in too many pies.
all right, guys.
But
That is
we've said enough on that.
that
I
is
think.
all the time and the love Artificer is going to get in the day.
Sorry.
So, really quick, before we move on, I'd like to thank everybody who's tuned in right now. We got a pretty healthy viewership. If you're
yeah.
enjoying what you're watching, please give us a like and share here on Facebook. We're trying to grow. We're trying to do more things. And so every like and share and a little bit of love you can throw our way really helps. Also, please comment and contribute because we do love reading your comments and actually having a live discourse with everybody who's tuning in. So,
Our show is also available on SoundCloud under 3DM's podcast, or just look up 3DM SoundCloud. So
Not
if you
live,
just-
I'm afraid. But
yeah, no, it's not live. But if you
can
want to
get the
just,
recorded
if you
versions
want to go back, or you're not able to make the live stream, but you still want to tune in and listen to what we have to say about this fantastic hobby, tune in, listen to that, and then if you still want to put your 2 cents in, send us a message. I'm pretty sure we have a 100% response rate at this point. We are always
96%. We missed one message. I'm
we're
afraid, in the third
always-
episode.
we're never
we
gonna
are
get that.
always up and open to engage with our fan base.
Yeah.
We will also have a fully functional actual website as of probably later this weekend / whenever I finish my term paper.
Finals week, guys.
Yeah, boy.
RIP.
But yeah, long story short, we'll talk about that later in the episode. But yeah, we got a bunch of big stuff coming. But again, likes, shares, if you're enjoying the content, just show some love because we love you and we don't even know what you look like.
Ken
So,
points out,
it's
boy, he's been listening to quite a few shows. I missed the rune arm they had, which is that anything like the Canadarm?
Rune Arm. I never played third.
Shout out to my
I admit I never played Artificer in 3rd edition. Admittedly, most of my 3rd edition experiences as a game master. So, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that, Kent.
back to you.
I hope it's like the Canadarm.
I think it's like my suspicion from just hearing is it's some sort of magical storage ability on one arm or something. But I'm sure somebody's gonna correct me in the
Or
comments.
Like a
Yes,
like
I'm.
an Inspector Gadget.
I didn't have the ability to buy every book when I was 14. I'm sorry.
Though I just
Didn't
saw
mow
actually
enough
this
lawns.
vintage book, whenever like your dad bought it, it cost $8.97.
Which is probably worth more than.
Yeah, right.
In any case,
Moving
we're kind
on.
of stalling. Moving on.
So, guys, we've talked about everything under the sun, official and unofficial, as far as classes, without touching the D&D wiki.
Yeah.
Sorry to the people who work the D&D wiki, but
You guys are doing something that's really, really cool, and I like the idea.
you're
of it.
doing the Lord's work, but you're also allowing anybody who wants to post it, so
You're
you'll
corrupted by
get
sin.
some things that should not be posted.
But
Like the
us-
ability to be a demigod as a first level class. Like, come on.
And Kent just posted the link for the D&D wiki.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
But also,
no.
Yeah.
We're sorry,
It's
Kent.
the
We're
rune.
sorry.
Wait, it's the rune.
Please don't quit us.
It's the rune arm GIF. I'm pulling it up. We need to look. Yeah,
Oh,
there. That's
that is
actually
pretty cool.
That looks really, really
It's
cool.
like a cyborg arm. And D&D, which is admittedly out of tone, but whatever.
okay.
So we talked about classes. We talked
We
about
talked
every
about everything
class
under the sun.
in the player's handbook and in Xanathar's. And I don't think we talked about the Cleric of Death in the Dungeon Master's Guide. but
No,
it's
we
not
haven't
that.
talked about the Dungeon
No.
Master Guide stuff, but that's just more like
Next
straight
week.
evil.
But I believe that
No, because those are
next,
just subclasses. But
well, the next question to ask, even though we've talked about everything under the sun, unofficial and official, is what's missing?
The biggest part, in my opinion, of role-playing games
What the
is, first of all, the people you're playing with, because it's like a road trip.
Yeah.
But secondly, it's homebrew. And this is a contentious topic for some people, but I think what people make is often more important than what was originally created. Because at the end of the day, you're not playing a video game where you have to strictly abide by the rules of the game. The game master / the dungeon master can just say, no, it's not cool. We're going to work with this instead. Mm-hmm. And people have spent a lot of time, and I've spent a lot of time building things. But we should ask, what classes would we really like to see officially ported to D&D?
We have our two answers. We have our two answers here for this show.
We would love to hear your answers as well, but we're going to give our...
By all means, please comment on them.
Yes, please.
So, Paul, tell me why we need Warlord. Tell us about the Warlord.
The Warlord is my favorite class that's ever been produced in Dungeons & Dragons. That's saying something because it only appeared in one edition. I've played every edition of D&D with at least a 2-month to a 5-month campaign. The Warlord in 4th edition is the leader archetype. That is to say, healer / support /
General, kind of.
yeah, to order people around in such a way that they know what to do. The Warlord is a healer that does not use magic. That's a very simplistic way to put it because the Warlord does many other things, and this healing is kind of mediocre because instead of, like, I'm going to use the power of Pelor to glue your arm back, and they say, stop being such a wuss and get back in there, it's fine.
Yeah, see, when somebody said, I can't remember if it was you or Jake that said that before the show, I just, like, immediately when they said that, I imagined Terry Crews just screaming at me.
That's a good example of a commanding presence.
Yeah, and that's a horrifying thought. Like, if I got punched in the face and then, like, Terry Crews caught me and then, like, snatched me up by my collar, was like, get back in there. I'm doing it.
You would walk off even if you had a broken
I'm doing
leg.
it.
Now,
Herm Edwards comes to mind as a human being who could shout me back into any situation.
Sun Devils.
Yeah.
So the Warlord has a lot of abilities that affect allies because they're commanding allies. Instead of using magic to enhance the power of their allies, they're saying, no, you do this here now. You do it right now. I don't care how tired you are. Go do that. So they can force other people, I shouldn't say force because presumably your allies want you to give them an extra attack. You can make your allies attack other people. And the joke, of course, goes that a barbarian can hit you with their axe, but a Warlord hits you with the barbarian. Like... That's what they do. And it's fun because it's a non-magical support class, which is something that I think D&D needs. D&D is a very high magic sort of setting, but that doesn't mean necessarily that a tactical genius needs to just be a battle master fighter.
Yeah. So it has been there are like bits and pieces of the kit that have been ported into the game,
Yeah, like
into
bards and
various
fighters and
subclasses. Like
paladins.
Oath of the Crown paladins have a couple of warlordy features, but it's
just not enough.
It's not enough.
Bards can't get in the mix.
I need the Man-at-Arms from Darkest Dungeon to tell me to man up.
Dylan says Warlord is the controlling spouse of the party.
Love it.
Yeah.
We also did get a comment that we might want to address after we've given our answers. Gary says that he would like to see gunslingers.
Hold that thought and tune in because I'm going to answer that in a moment after we finish up with the Warlord because I want to leave one thought hanging.
We will cover that one.
So,
I know 4th edition was contentious, and there's a good reason for it to be contentious. But Warlord is an interesting idea that got kind of thrown out with the baby in the bathwater.
So, Paul, how would you implement Warlord in this edition?
I think there's a lot to take from fighters. It'd probably be a D10 hit die class with the one extra attack. You know, the usual fighting abilities. You'd get your fighting styles. You'd get your armor proficiency up to medium, going up to heavy, maybe at 6th level. But I think the important thing would be that you could spend your action to cause an ally within 20 or 30 feet or whatever to make an attack instantly.
Okay.
And this wouldn't stack with extra attack, but it wouldn't even take their actions. You say, you're attacking them right now. And obviously there'd be some abuses where you have like 16 warlords following a barbarian around and ordering them to do things. But at that point, just play a wizard. Like, you can do better things with a wizard. Outside of that, I think that they would probably just have a sort of thing where whenever you provide an order, which is a sort of buff to a character, like you'd have a set of orders that you choose from a list, like much like the battle master gets. Whenever you give an order, you could also heal them as one of your major class features, like a very small amount because they're not supposed to be a primary healer, but like, oh, you heal your charisma bonus.
I have looked at
a
couple of homebrew Warlord, a couple of homebrew attempts at Warlord, and I'm seeing a lot of temporary hit points thrown around for that, which is actually an idea I do like.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that too. Whenever somebody takes one of your orders or they follow in your orders, they get whatever charisma bonus plus half your level or something in temporary hit points, something like that.
Now, this might be something small, but I have a question for you.
Shoot.
would you give them the option to take either like animal handling as a proficiency, or give them like land vehicles as like a tool or other proficiency?
I think both.
You would think, because as soon as you guys started talking about Warlord, I imagined somebody in full plate sitting on a horse giving out orders to
Yeah,
his
it's the
men.
tactical genius.
3
of
inches of
seasoned
blood playing very
veteran.
loudly in the background.
Oh yeah.
Even on top of that, I would say I'd go so far as to, and this is going to be a really hot take, so bear with me, Jake. I would go so far as to give them as like with their 10th level ability, leadership from 3rd edition.
I do love leadership.
It's overpowered as hell,
I'm
but-
so glad it's not in 5th edition because it has just made my life so much easier.
Hang on, I'm just going to bring in a second character sheet. I've got it ready. This is my character. He's 2 levels lower than my previous character.
So now that I'm level 6 and I'm taking leadership, I have 18 other characters that are now under my control, and they do exactly what I say because they're my followers. I get 11 level 1s, like 2 level 2s and a level 5.
Yeah. Your
Leadership
cohort,
is
who's
ridiculous.
kind of your sidekick, like, holy cow, Batman. That kind
You
of
get
thing.
minions.
Yeah.
You get pet NPCs.
Yeah.
It's I'm
Helen
glad
has low-key just given herself leadership by just being like, hey, look at all these characters I made. They're part of my gang. And I'm like, well, you did all the work. I'm not going to take
can't
that away
stop
from
you.
you.
Thanks, you enabled
So
me.
that's my take on the Warlord. I'm sure there's going to be contentious discussion about it, but I think the Warlord is a fun class archetype that isn't quite explored by the Battlemaster.
AJ Cunningham actually has a very interesting addition to this conversation about Warlord. He says Warlords could benefit quite a bit from having access to certain arcane abilities that have a more martial flavor, such as using haste to give party members extra attacks or being able to cast mage armor and the like. Aside from that, maybe their class features could focus more on party buffs rather than personal building. For example, every ally within 30 feet gets a +1 bonus to initiative at level 3 and things along those lines.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's actually a pretty good way to put it without unbalancing the game by throwing in 60 different variations of the same ability. Instead of having this person gets another attack, you say, okay, as long as I don't move too quickly or don't make any other actions, everyone has haste while I'm ordering them around.
Yeah. Good on you, AJ. Excellent
Good
comment.
choice. So,
just as you said, like along the lines of the balance, like I had a train of thought and it just totally went off the rails. But I think that these things right here, if you want the Warlord in the game for the sole purpose of basically being the inspirer of the party and really helping the party out, oh yeah, that would be awesome.
Top general, sort of.
so
Yeah.
and
I would play Warlord, no doubt.
Just
I
my
actually designed a Dragonborn
ways,
Warlord, yeah,
just
I love my son.
my son.
So, just my bit on Warlord and where it kind of already exists and how you can do one just a little bit. They're still very close. I would call them kissing cousins with the Paladin.
Yes.
The Warlord and the Paladin, the only difference between a Warlord and a Paladin
Is the Paladin's actually a beat stick rather than somebody who can occasionally just mix it up?
well, that and the Paladin is fueled by divinity. What makes the Warlord interesting is the idea of a guy doing everything just in his own mortal power.
Fueled by honor.
You know,
Or as AJ said, having access to some sort of arcane forces as well.
Well, the thing is, they wouldn't be arcane forces. They would be the equivalent of arcane forces just to avoid stacking issues.
yeah.
It could go either way.
Obviously, you
It'd
could
be an interesting
fluff it as
subclass, but as I was saying-
arcane,
Oh,
like
yeah.
some sort of alternate war mage, basically.
Yeah.
As I was saying,
Oh, I would be so down with that.
they're basically the same thing. Like I would call a Warlord I would call a Paladin who doesn't have a
a god,
so to speak, or a divine force, which is something I want to talk about, but we'll get to that later. I would call that a Warlord.
Yeah.
Just a Paladin without any religious background.
Yeah, they're just
although that's been a very
they're
contentious
powered by zealous might alone, indefatigable purpose.
Yeah.
I was also going to say that warlords reminded me of sort of paladins who can have oaths of enmity.
Yes.
the vengeance.
I'm going to kill you until you're dead, and then I'm going to move on to the next guy. Which I
So-
think
so.
is
Yeah.
because you could maybe, a warlord could maybe assign an oath of enmity to another.
Nacho just commented and said mildly psychic, perhaps.
think it gets
Nacho,
away,
I thought we were better friends than that, man.
Okay.
I know you
good
saw the
idea.
psionics thing.
Sort of.
I'm just kidding.
I'm sure
I'm
some
just
of you have
kidding.
played
Well, let's-
XCOM Enemy Unknown. Imagine instead of a sectoid, you've got a badass dude in a suit of armor with a hammer and a shield, mind merging with his allies to give them directions.
Okay.
But aside from that, final thoughts on Warlord before we get to the Gunslinger, which our
Yeah.
good friend, what's his name? Gary Howie commented. We'll get to that in a moment.
No, I want to see. I definitely want to see that somehow get brought to the game, even if it's like it's. I'm actually a little shocked that Xanathars just didn't present it as an option for fighter.
Perhaps
Although
they
it does-
considered it too contentious because 4th edition had some real big haters. I got to tell them. Most
Well,
people
they
have moved
did,
away
but
from
they've
that
really
now.
everybody's really chilled on that.
Probably after seeing what Pathfinder got into with wizard shenanigans.
Yeah, I think.
It's a dark path.
I think there's still like a way you can make a warlord. I think either a paladin or a fighter as a paladin or a fighter subclass, it could exist. But
it wouldn't
'Cause
have the
it-
same benefits if you actually included mechanical
because
abilities.
long
that the
story
class
short,
would
it's
gain.
going to eventually like how it's going to turn out because it's charisma fueled, but it still needs to have high constitution and strength. So it's like a paladin in that regard.
Well, remember that one
But
of the
it-
options in 4th edition was you could play an intelligence-based warlord too.
yeah,
The tactical genius. Tactical genius.
Yeah, that was what Timer was. Shout out.
yeah.
But sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, Jake. Go on.
But on the other side, it's still got to have all the fighter stuff. So still strength and constitution, and it's gonna. It still would kind of look like a battle master in a way, but I still really want to see it. I think it's that one because with
the
fifth
one
edition,
that got away.
with 5th edition, the way subclasses are set up, you can actually, and also a little bit of elbow grease on your own part, and just not rules as written. Meh.
Rules as written has their purpose. It's the best way to not argue at cross purposes with each other when
Yeah,
you're discussing two different rule sets.
Rules.
But you can always modify stuff into other classes that have existed. But I'd like to see Warlord show up.
Yeah.
When?
Final thoughts on Warlord.
On Warlord.
You never
yeah,
played
Warlord.
4th edition, but
I did not play 4th edition. I have to come clean on that. But man, this just sitting and talking about this and all the reading that I did when we said that we were gonna bring up Warlord today, I'm disappointed that it's not there. I'm pumped. I want to play this class. It seems so cool. Being that the character that I play on Wednesday as well in Jake's game is
Erewhon basically is a warlord.
I mean kind of very
At least
tactical has.
roleplay-wise, he's a warlord.
Tries to be at least. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't work out quite that way. But I mean, my own anecdotal input aside, no, I think that this is a super, super cool idea, and I really wish that it was incorporated in 5e.
Yeah.
because I don't think it would be a game-breaking class.
no, probably not.
No, especially since I've sort of given myself leadership in the same game I played
Yeah.
with Clint
Yeah.
as a fighter rogue warlock. So it's
Yeah.
See, and you guys just act like I'm super mean to you guys all the time.
no, it's because
I don't realize how much I
They
give all of
haven't
you.
played in the game
Paul.
with me yet. I want the Warlord. I've obviously made that clear. There's not really much else for me to say on it. That if it's not made, I'm eventually probably going to homebrew it in a fit of rage.
All right.
But let's get to the Gunslinger because we've sort of waffled on the Warlock Crit.
So
Yeah.
we did do a review of Mr. Alex Bell's homebrew.
I think it's quite. Is it episode 4 or?
I believe so.
We'll track it down and we'll post it. But we did do a review on a
What episode is this? 9?
yeah.
That's 9.
Then it had to have been. It had to have been either episode 3 or episode 4 because we had 3 episodes dedicated to class review.
It was not episode 4, but not episode 3 because that was the lost episode.
That was the last episode. So yes, it was episode 4.
So
Anyway.
that being said, the Gunslinger, I think his Gunslinger is excellent. Obviously, it needs me taking a machete to it because I'm a relentless perfectionist.
Yeah.
There's a lot of debate about whether or not guns should exist in a fantasy setting. There's a sort of medieval stasis argument. And Exalted, for example, which is a much different game from D&D, has fire wands instead, which instead of using gunpowder, they have fire spirits, fire bullets for them.
Yeah, there's a whole long discussion you can have about gunslingers existing and all that and stuff. But the general idea of the class,
I feel like it could be either a very major fighter rework or its own class.
yeah, the grit mechanic, which is usually what is referred to as, because I think Pathfinder, as much as
Pathfinder did grit, yes. That's one of the few good inventions on
That's
it.
actually what
I'm
Gary.
insulting Paizo. I'm sorry, guys.
That's exactly what Gary said. Actually, he said when we said that we were going to cover it, he commented and said, "Sweet, thanks, because I've played them in Pathfinder."
Yeah, Pathfinder, I have a lot of problems with Pathfinder. Gunslinger is not one of those problems. I love Gunslinger in Pathfinder.
Yeah, they did a really good job on that. The grit mechanic is cool, and
It's admittedly bottom of tier 4, but it's not a wizard in caster edition, so what are you going to do?
yeah.
It's good as far as non-caster classes go.
So I could see Gunslinger showing up as a fighter subclass one day.
I mean, the thing
I
is-
could see it, yeah. But I've also played a character in a one-shot that used a long rifle in one of your one-shots that was an arcane archer. but instead of a bow, I used a gun.
That's because I've slowly started sprinkling guns in just to experiment with my own world. But
As I'm sure Helen is aware, though, the thing is, of course, is that eventually, while armor was not immediately obsoleted by guns, eventually armor just stopped being particularly effective against guns.
Right.
So that's something you do have to be aware of when you're inventing a game is plate armor is going to exist for about another 100 years, and it's going to be completely useless.
Well, but there's magic armor.
It's true. Magic solves a lot of problems.
Magic
And
does
I hate to
solve,
say, "Ooh, a wizard did it" as your main solution for.
When in doubt,
But
blame the
sometimes
wizard.
a wizard does do it.
yeah. Well, you know,
I-
And also, this isn't like medieval fantasy where straight fact, I'm not joking you, apparently during the siege of, I don't want to say it was Melun, I think it was siege of Tours, an English gunman was sent to go do penance because he managed to fire off 3 shots from his cannon in a day, which was considered to be evidence of his being in league with the devil. So actually aiming, if you're trying to be all historically accurate.
What's the
would be
name
a
of that?
whole thing,
It's
so.
the Battle of Hastings that the French got butchered by longbowmen, right?
That's Agincourt. That's my
Agincourt,
favorite,
yes.
and that's because they got stuck in between some trees, and their crossbowmen abandoned them, and it was because
Also,
a lot of
didn't they
failures within the French
didn't they
world.
charge without
All right,
orders,
guys.
something like that?
Yeah,
Guys.
2 times.
But moving on,
gone too far on that.
Don't-
So,
don't-
gunslingers.
Yeah.
I
I could do a whole podcast about
Well,
it.
Gunslingers will show up eventually.
they're good. The homebrew that we linked is a good example of them. You
Yeah,
do
we'll,
need to.
we'll reshare it at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I'm sure he's made some edits from the suggestions we've made, obviously, because some of them are like, when does this bonus end?
Yeah.
You forgot to put this ends after
But
a
no,
minute or
but it's
something.
it's a good solid framework, and I'm
It's certainly, I wouldn't say it's unbalanced.
so. We're gonna get to what I want to see show up:
By all means, go on.
A fantasy.
the summoner class.
Orewa stando.
I'm actually going to go grab
Make
some water
me
real
best
quick
trick.
while you guys
go
debate
for it.
that real quick.
All right.
Can't blame you,
sorry.
but
You want to
If
get
you-
away from our
he's
weekend
not
trick?
played Pathfinder 3rd edition, so he's got little experience. He's played 5th edition, blessed 5th edition, where we don't have to deal with wizards playing Pokemon. with
He's one of
some
those-
monsters.
No,
Your
no,
beautiful
Clint-
son is pure. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, that well, he's just one of those kids who doesn't realize how bad it was in the 40s. He's like, was polio really that bad? Yes, it was that bad. Okay, you're growing up in a beautiful time. So
Summoner. So
Summoner.
what's your inspiration, first of all? Pathfinder did a summoner, and it's really overpowered. But then again, it's not quite as good as a wizard because it's only tier 2. Wizard, cleric, and druid. But synthesis summoner, when you really want to be a monster, is don't let your players play it.
So here's what I find because there are definitely people who, when we look at other sources that you could definitely link in the world of D&D nerdy stuff, such as World of Warcraft, Diablo, things of that nature. There are a lot of people who really enjoy playing a character that directly controls other smaller characters. Right? Not necessarily the warlord being like, listen to me, do everything I say, and we might make it out alive.
Having pet NPCs, Jake was like, "Yeah, you can have a gang of thieves," and I was like, "Yes."
Yeah. No, I'm talking like you summon a monster a la Yuna from Final Fantasy or other people like that. Like I'm thinking Witch Doctor from Diablo 3, a couple of things like that.
We covered Necromancer from Diablo 2 earlier, so
Where I think it's a really good addition to the game, if you just made Summoner a wizard subclass, congratulations. You can now play D&D by yourself. You don't need to have any of your friends show up, because if you can just summon a big old monster to do everything for you while you are doing wizardy things, you don't need to play the damn game with anybody else.
As somebody
you
who
are
has
a
a
one-man wrecking crew.
very long checklist of things wrong in 3rd edition. The summon monster spells being easily available is one of them. Where, we have a rogue. I'll just summon a dog and they can run into the traps for us. Boom, trap sprung, problem solved.
Yeah. So when it comes to the summoner in 5th edition, there
You have
are
to be very careful with pets, I got to tell you.
Yes. Well, so here's the way I would implement it. I actually, it's very convenient that we covered Artificer today
Because they do have their golem pet, yeah.
yeah, that is almost the way I would do it. They would have a bit more magic. I wouldn't say they'd get anything past 5th level.
I go to 6th level, which is what Pathfinder did. For all their problems, that's one of the very well designed. Oh, it's not well designed, I should say. It's a fun class, and I enjoy it.
So if
But
we're gonna
they
go,
had some
if
good
we're gonna go
choices.
top
This
to
is a
bottom,
game. Fun is important.
Yes.
yeah, if we're gonna go top to bottom on how I would, design Summoner, so to speak, and what I think it adds to the game, they'd probably get a healthy amount of skills, like Artificer does, about 3 skills from a okay pool.
A decent skill list, probably including perception and some other mediocre skills. is my
They go
guess.
to 6th level in terms of spells, and starting at second level, they would get a scalable, a growing
Your Pokemon.
summon. Yeah, pretty much. You are just playing with one giant Pokemon, maybe two.
The one you
a
level
nice big
ground
starter,
into
yeah.
level 30 in those bushes outside of Cerulean.
Yeah. Because it is, so a lot of people look at Ranger Beastmaster and just go, lol, useless. But
The thing is, of course, the problem is that you.
Ranger
tricky.
Beastmaster is really cool if the monster that you're controlling is actually like really good.
And you don't have to spend your action to make it take its actions.
Yes. But as a summoner, I can actually see that as effective. And then you can sprinkle certain things in. Like say at 7th level, instead of it being a full action, no, we'll put it at 5th level. Instead of a full action to command your big old summon buddy to go do something cool, it becomes a bonus action.
My suggestion, of course, would be unless directed otherwise, the summon is just going to immediately charge at the closest thing and continue attacking it.
Yeah.
You have to command it to do anything other than attack the closest enemy.
What that adds is, and then you can give the summoner a spell list that is full of support style things. Where I think it's cool as an idea is it really allows you to dive into this fluff of designing a unique summon.
Like Rita Repulsa, if you will.
Yeah, you can spend time on how, this bond works. It can be almost like if summoner was to show up the way I'm describing it, it'd almost damn near be a warlock thing. Just in terms of how warlock spells already kind of work in a way.
Like Pact of the Chain.
A little bit, but
Back to the chain, but for
hardcore.
But
back to the
like
chain,
Yeah.
but for the
That
guy
chain
who worked
got
out.
a lot thicker. Okay, that
For
chain
like
is
a Tyranitar.
Yeah.
It's
Shout out
thick.
to Pokemon friendly listeners, yeah. Thick.
It's like instead of having an imp, you've got a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah.
and
No, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
No, well, what I was going to say is having somebody who has a decent background in the Elder Scrolls game, when I think of a summoner, my number one go-to when I was making a Conjuration Mage was bound weapons. What
good
would
choice,
you do as far as that? Like, would you just give them spiritual weapon as a spell choice, or would you allow them to summon a weapon from the void and actually use it themselves?
Yeah, like Pact of the Blade.
Yeah,
You know,
Pact of the Blade.
But I mean, Pact of the Blade just
Oh,
takes a weapon and puts it into an extra dimensional space.
Oh, you mean like you could summon any
I mean, like
Pokemon
you could just summon a sword, or you could summon a battle axe or a bow.
My suggestion, of course, would be that
instead of having a Pokemon.
while you don't have your Pokemon out, you could instead choose to summon as a full action. You could summon yourself a set of medium armor and a weapon of your choice, which you'd be proficient in.
I feel like having an
And it would
armory
have
I would be okay
and,
with that.
like a storage box full of Pokemon is a little wild.
Yeah, it'd also be like +1 when you're 5th level or 4th level, whatever, and +2 when you're 8th level, and +3 when you're 12th level, or something like that. And so you could say,
Makes
okay, I
sense.
don't have my Pokemon. I'm going to put on my suit of armor, which is magic and glowing, and I'm going to pull out my hammer and I'm going to beat you with it.
Okay. Ultimately, though, when it comes to Summoner, where I think it should belong in the game, it fits right outside of what all the classes do.
The
It can do
established
something-
paradigm, if you
Yeah.
will.
Fits right outside of all that neatly. It adds something unique and kind of cool. And I'd like to see it show up at some point, because I have had a lot of players bring me homebrew summoners. Again, the hardest part of making a summoner class is that balance is difficult.
The thing is, once you break the action economy, it stays broken. The problem that 3rd edition and a lot of games have had is, oops, I accidentally let this character take 6 actions in one turn. My bad.
Yeah. If you can figure out a way to, if they can figure out a way to do it, though, I'd love to see Summoner show up. Final thoughts, Summoner. Clint, you first.
I think that it's an extremely cool concept. But just like you said, balancing this class and having it work in 5e with the classes that are already there in arguably the most balanced edition of D&D,
Yeah, I mean, 2nd edition is pretty bad too, but
it would be
hot take. Sorry.
it would be pretty hard to incorporate Summoner balance-wise in an already pretty balanced game. But
The most balanced edition,
the
honestly.
idea of being able to have the choice between armor and a weapon, or a big Pokemon type deal where they just attack the closest thing to it, I
summon
think
you,
that's a
Tyrannosaurus
super
Rex. Eat
cool
him.
idea. Super cool idea. Yeah. I would be on board.
Paul? Because you did
Summoner-
say you have some contentious thoughts.
Summoner is something you have to be very, very, very careful with, Because again, one of the biggest problems in 3rd edition was I can summon things to do things other party members would otherwise do. So you have to be extremely careful that your minion or whatever can't just be a better fighter, because that was a problem in 3rd edition. Is fool, my animal companion is better than entire classes.
Yeah, Nacho actually said mummy rotten minions are the greatest things in life.
Having minions is excellent. It's an excellent choice, but
Well,
to some degree, I hate to say this, but I almost don't want to see Summoner, because the chances that Summoner is going to be horribly overpowered are so high that I think it may not be worth the risk.
I've got a lot of faith in the current 5th edition team because
yeah.
they haven't
messed up severely yet.
Yeah, they haven't like really dropped the ball with anything.
They haven't dropped like Initiative of the 7 Veils or whatever. So
Jake, we know your description. We know where you stand on it. What's your final thoughts?
I would just like to see it in the game personally. I think it's the one of the few things that you can't really just
fluff into
shape.
another class.
Yeah, you can't fluff into another class or just kind of, turn it into your own way. For example, like I miss the old shaman stuff, but at the same time, a lot of that shaman fluff,
Could just be cleric or druid.
Or as we were talking about with the warlord, it could be a cleric or a paladin, just kind of fluff around.
With summoner, there isn't really a way to do it unless it's strictly built from the ground up.
The only pet class is a subclass of ranger, and ranger is one of the worst core book classes.
Yeah. So finding a way to
master is the worst of those classes.
Finding a way to make it good, but
Without-
not so good that everyone's just like, well, we're going home. You've got this.
Yeah, what's that that Michael and Webb skit? BMX Bandit and Angel Summoner? Or I could just summon a legion of angels.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in today. If you're enjoying what you're watching, please give us a like and a share. If you want to listen to our other episodes, you can find us on SoundCloud under the 3DMs podcast. Please give us a like and share here on Facebook.
Just on the
3DMs
note,
podcast.
I'm sorry, just on the note of what Jake said, I've been keeping an eye on this the whole time. The lowest, once we really got going with the episode, the lowest we had was like 39 concurrent viewers. And
Thank you for watching us, guys. I
Before the episode has even ended, I believe that this is the best viewership we've had before the episodes ends. We're already at 2.2 thousand. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks,
that
man.
is incredible. It's an amazing feeling to be a part of something that we're actually,
It's working, guys.
yeah, it's working. You guys are interested in what we're doing, and I love it. And thank you guys for.
We're going to throw out a couple
tuning
of
in.
things here really quick because we've got a bunch of stuff coming up. Next week, we're going to be talking about Star Wars, spoiler free, and some
That might
Star
be
Wars.
I promise.
Some
no
Secret
spoilers.
hot take. Everyone is Jar Jar Binks.
I'm
Guys,
just-
It might be
we
hard
made
to
a-
make that
we
episode
made
because
a
I don't know if I can do it
promise before the
spoiler free.
show. No, we're
Okay.
we're gonna.
Let's get
Oh, it's
our
gonna be
thoughts in
so
order
good.
here, guys.
Real quick, if I'm not on the podcast next week, it's because I've driven to California to burn down Burbank Studios, because if there's not a scene of Luke and Leia together, then I don't know what I'm going to do with them.
Carrie Fisher is dead. That may be tricky.
Shut up!
They if they
God
hadn't
rest
already
her
thought,
soul.
hey, wait. The,
Okay,
the
guys.
Hunger Games series had basically an entire movie of Philip Seymour Hoffman CGI. They can make a Luke and Leia scene with CGI.
I don't care.
Okay, let's get back on topic here, guys. This is a
Anyway,
D&D
yeah, let's get
podcast,
back to
remember.
D&D.
So we're going to talk about.
We got the
Star
5-minute
Wars-
warning, boys.
Yes, Star Wars related homebrew, and other things that are particular to
Edge
the
of
game.
the
That we,
Empire.
yeah, things that we can get, from Star Wars and add them to our D&D quality of life.
Yeah, Kylo Ren would make a very interesting fighter build.
Well, I'd say more like a
Bad
NPC,
cleric.
bad cleric
Yeah, exactly.
build.
Yeah, very
Also,
very
we've
good
got-
still.
He's not very
Also,
good.
we've
He
got a
got
bunch
beaten by
of-
an untrained
No,
novice.
he's
So
kind of dumb.
Also, we've got a bunch of news coming up in terms of how we're going to keep the show funded. It isn't free to do. It isn't super expensive, but we've got a Patreon coming out very soon. We're launching our website this week. I know I've said launching the website this week like 3 times now, but this time it's for real. It's like Terminator 2.
we shall see.
No,
I
it's
have
gonna happen.
faith, but
We're launching our website. We're going to get the Patreon up and running, and we're also hoping to do a holiday review, basically, for things you might want to buy as a D&D player. We're going to go over the books briefly. We're going to talk about Star Wars. We got a really fun episode planned next week.
Are we going to include the core books there, or are we just going to do supplemental stuff?
you should probably already have the carb. Okay.
Well, I
Core
mean,
books are a good
not
gift,
necessarily.
but-
That's why I'm asking as far as like reviews. I mean, we've already talked about the mechanics of the game, but
I mean, to be honest, all the core books, at the very least, your players should probably buy their own copy of the core books. So you should suggest that as a gift for them. But
yeah,
Just have the player's handbook. But we're going to talk about that next week. But in final thoughts for this week, as we didn't even have time to do our class post-mortem. So the bell is back. Where is my beloved bell?
Where's the bell?
Oh God.
Oh, Christ.
It's been thrust upon you one more time, buddy. We have 3 minutes.
Okay, let's do this.
We have 9
let's do it.
classes. Barbarian, go.
Conan the Barbarian, beat people hard.
All right. How do you feel about bards, Paul?
There's a lot of problems with bards. On the other hand, they're a lot of fun, and they're a very good toolkit class.
about-
They're fun for experienced players.
Clerics, go.
Down from their horribly overpowered, broken state in 3rd edition, clerics are now merely good, but unfortunately their buffs are all, unfortunately, too unstackable, which makes them difficult to use properly without serious experience.
Druid, go.
Moon Circle Druid is probably the most powerful class in 5th edition, just because Wild Shape is incredibly powerful. And they're good spellcasters too, obviously.
Who knows what's next? Anybody? Anyone?
Fighter, I think?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fighter, go.
Fighter is no longer at the bottom of tier 5. The Fighting Man. We could probably use more Hercules and Kuklain in this rather than just I want to play a Fighting Man, but it is now actually a viable class.
I love to punch.
All right. That brings up Monk, go.
No longer the joke of classes. Monk is actually useful for punching people now, and it's a fun class. It's not very good past about 10th level, but until then, if you want to play a Jackie Chan movie, Monk is for you.
I'm calling the Sentry Ranger, Fall from Grace, go.
Ranger is like the guy in high school who's wearing a Leatherman jacket and continues wearing it into his late 20s where he used to be cool. He's quite good until about 15th level.
I feel
14th
attacked. I
level.
wore a leather jacket to the studio.
Rogue, go.
Rogue is excellent. There's really nothing to say about it. Rogue is the best of all classes as always. I mean, obviously there are classes more powerful, but Rogue has the most flexibility as far as options and fluff goes.
I forgot about Paladins, go.
Paladins are no longer as restrained as they used to be.
How dare you forget Paladins? You said, and I quote, I play them professionally.
I do play them professionally.
Paladins
I
are
just forgot about
excellent.
them.
They're fantastic beat sticks. They have great fluff.
All right. What's left?
Well, we got all the sorcerer,
Ranger,
warlock,
Rogue, yeah. So, Sork, go.
wizards that aren't entirely incompetent at social skills and have useful abilities.
Wizards.
My least favorite class, but quite powerful, has a lot of utility, and has the most subclasses of any class. It's an excellent class
That's
for an
a
experienced
fact. That's
player.
not a
And Warlock.
Probably the best caster for anybody who's not an experienced player to play. Just like if you only played for like a year or something, I'd recommend Warlock. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it. And overall, you've got an Eldritch being holding your chain.
Eldritch Blast is the only thing you should have said.
See, that wasn't too
Oh
stressful.
yeah, Eldritch Blast skills with character level rather than class level. Just take one level Warlock. It never hurts.
That was not too stressful this time. Okay, no more bell. We are done with the bell. All right, guys.
Can't believe I did that in 3 minutes.
Yep. So that's our show for the day. Thanks to
Yeah.
everybody for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a share on Facebook. We love you. And,
Thank you for tuning in to us, guys. We appreciate it.
we got a website coming out. We got a Patreon coming out. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of neat stuff. Got YouTube launching. Basically, it's going to be a real busy week once we get done with finals. Nobody gets any sleep ever.
And like Jake said, share the video, share it with your friends, tell your friends about us. And on top of that, if you can't watch it live or you just want to listen to the audio because that can be more convenient sometimes, we are on SoundCloud.
Send us your hot takes.
Yeah.
We
I
want
have,
to hear from you.
I have many opinions. Most of them are wrong. Please correct me.
All right, guys. That was 3DM's podcast. I'm Jake.
I'm Helen.
I'm Paul.
And I'm Clint.
Until next week, roll
on.
on.
Roll on.
Oh, no. It isn't working. Everybody panic.
Panic, panic.
Do you have your little fingies? There you go.
Did you use the trackpad, bros?
It's mad broken.
for that.
Fear not, stranger, barbarian, magician, thief, cavalier, and acrobat.
Who was that?
That was Venger, the
Thanks for
force
tuning in,
of
guys.
evil.
Enjoy the special
I
after
am
show
Dungeon
content.
Master, your guide in the realm of
Of us panicking
Dungeons
and slow
and
mo.
Dragons.